Welcome guys, welcome to the channel, welcome to the course. Today we are going to discuss about the internet standard, RFC, that is request for comment, RFC requirement levels, RFC stage of developments, and then lastly we'll discuss about the majority level. So this lecture is going to be more very beneficial for you guys. So let's start. Starting with the internet, as we all know that internet is a network of network. But before discussing with this network of network, we have some background points. So let's take that background points. The internet grew out of the world's area, wide area networks of the Advanced Research Project Agency, that is ARPANET, established by the US Department of Defense in the 1960s for collaboration between the business and government laboratories in the military research. So initially it was purpose of the internet was restricted. Only the government agencies and the few agency laboratories are going to be. It was mentioning that the works for the only limited areas. It means of connect. Internet is means of connecting a computer to any other computers anywhere in the world via dedicated routers and servers. When two computers are connected over the internet, they can send and receive all kind of information such as text, graphics, voice, video, and computer programs also. So this is going to be a use of that internet. No one owned the internet. Now this statement is very important, guys, because there is no any single owner of the internet. As the global companies, as the major companies or government agencies are came together, and they have built this kind of network. Although several organizations the world over the collaborate its functioning and development. So high-speed fiber optic cables, it is called backbones, through which the bulk of the internet data travels are owned by telephone companies in their respective countries. So these companies are going to be handling all these functions and the development of the internet. The internet is the global system of interconnection computer network that communicates between the network and devices using the Internet Protocol Suite, that's TCP/IP, and it is a network of network comprising local to global private, public, academic, government networks connected by the broad range of electronics, wireless, and optical network technologies. So, moreover, we can say in today's world, the internet is everything, where every component in the world are going to be connected via internet. They are eligible to send the received messages. Other stuff also is going to be possible. Then the terminologies, let's say, having the internet standard. The internet standard is a prescriptive specification of an internet applicable technologies or methodology. So this is very important. Internet standards are created and published by the Internet Engineering Task Force. So internet standards are going to be managed and created by this engineering task force. An internet standard is an thoroughly tested specification that is useful to and adhere to by those who works with the internet. So here we can say there's supposed to be one kind of mechanism that if anything is going to be in a research oriented one, so that is going to be tested thoroughly with the specification, and that is what the internet standard. It is formalized regulation that must be followed. There is a strict procedure by which the specification attend internet standard. So internet standards are what we can say there is a rules and regulations are available, still strict procedures are available that we have to follow. However, this task force does not impose standard. Instead, it simply oversees the process by which ideas are developed into the agreed upon the standard. So internet standard, we can say this, there are some rules, there are some basic procedures. That procedure need to be followed to develop some kind of what we can say the standards. So internet standard is more or required over here. Now let's go to the next slide where we have a request for comment. Now, read carefully, guys. Listen carefully, guys. That request for comment is a publication from the Internet Society and its associated bodies, most prominently the Internet Engineering Task Force, the principal technical development and standard setting bodies of the Internet. So here the RFC is nothing but the one document, one publication where everything is going to be written by the internet standard and their scientists about the internet standards or the, let's say, network standards. If everything, if I have a protocol, a device, that need to be going to be have a manual kind of things. The specification began as the internet draft, And the internet draft is working document, that is with no official status and the 6-month lifetime. Upon recommendation from that internet authorities, the draft may be published as a request for comment. So to become the RFC, so that RFC at the previous level, it is what the internet draft. After the 6 month and the approval of the authority, it is going to be converted into the RFC. So this is what the first step to become RFC is what the internet draft. RFC is a document that describes the standard protocol and technologies and the internet and TCP of the internet and the TCP/IP since 1969. About 2400 requests for comments have been published on various technical networking protocols, procedures, applications, and the concept. So here I already told you that if in a networking everything is going to be working, so like a protocol, procedures, application, concept need to have RFC. So RFC is what? RFC is a published document after the 6-month period, 6-month period approved by the official agencies. It becomes RFC. Each RFC is edited, assigned a numbers. So everyone is having a number and made available to all the interested parties. So publicly it is available. It is a foolproof document, we can say. Uh, the task force also defined the protocol standards as a less mature but stable and well received specification. Okay. So then we have a requirement levels of the RFCs. So there are 5 requirement levels of the RFCs. If you see the diagram, we have RFC requirement levels. The first is required, second recommended, electives, limited use, and the not recommended one. So here, if I summarize this slide, I can say required. Involve all system must implement this required RFCs level. Second will be all systems should implement. Third will be it is not required nor recommended, that is elective one. And limited use few situation like experimental situation, use it if. And the last one is what, fifth one, that is not recommended, system should not implement. So these are the RFC levels. Like the required one, RFC is labeled required if must be implemented by all the internet system to achieve the minimum requirement. For example, the IP and ICMP are required protocols. So these are the two protocols wherever it is going to be, where everywhere it is going to be applicable. So IP and ICMP, every header format comprised of the field, let's say IP, because IP version 4, IP version 6 is available. Recommended, it is going to be recommended that, let's say, for example, FTP and the telnets are recommended protocols for their own purpose and then for specific purposes. Elective, it is not mandate, I can say, but elective, limited use also available and not recommended also available. These are the 5 uh, RFC requirement levels are there. And there in the diagram, you can say in the very gist format. Second, there is some RFC stage of development. So there is a development phase goes through the 3, what we can say, the directions. Once the RFC is classified, it is published as a internet draft, and it discussed and tested by the research and technical group of individuals. Eventually, it will go through the following development stages. So stage number 1, proposed standard. Proposed standard is stable, well understood, and generally considering useful. So proposed standard is what the stable, it's never going to be changed, well understood, clearly defined, generally considering useful. It is very useful. Then second will be a draft standard. It is stable enough to develop implementation of the standard in application and the networking technologies. And third is what the internet standard. Technically, it is mature, wide implemented, and significantly beneficial to the internet community. So these are the 3 phases of the RFC development, where it started from the proposed standard, draft standard, and the internet standard. Here there is a one note, that is the draft standard was an intermediary step that occurs after the proposal standard and but prior to the internet standard. So these draft standards are in middle step, we can say. Upper one is the proposed standard and the lower one is what the internet standard. So these are the stages of the RFC development. There are few numbers we have shown over here. Then let's say we said that every protocol having the numbers of RFC. So ICMP 790, 792, ARP 826, IGMP 1112, DSCP having 2 RFCs, and etc. 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 Up to last RARP is what we have a 903. So these are the RFCs are available. If you go with the slides or let's say diagrams or the manuals of this RFCs. So this is what the document. This is RFC document. We can say, guys, this is what the document where we can see all the stuffs related with this RFCs. There is a slide also available in this slide. So these are the two links are going to be very beneficial to you use requested to search it on this on internet. Then there are some maturity levels. So actually there are 6 maturity level of the RFCs. Very first is a proposed standard, draft standard, internet standard, historical, experiment, and the information. So these are the 6 maturity levels. We can see the diagram how this life cycle is going to be done. So let's take one by one. So in a proposed standard, the proposed standard is a specification that is stable, well understood, and of sufficient interest of their internet community. It has received significant community reviews and appears to enjoy enough community interest to be considered valuable. At this level, the specification is usually tested and implemented by several different programs. So this is very important. In a proposed standard, so specification is usually tested and implemented by several different programs. So this is what the main purpose. So here testing is done. Usually, it neither implemented nor operational experience. It is required for the designation of the specification as the protocol standard. Proposed standard are of such quality that implementation can be deployed on the internet. However, as with all technical specification, proposed standard may be revised if problem. So not it is not necessary that if once proposed standard developed, it is not going to be revised. It is going to be revised if there is a problem found in any. When experiences with the deploying implementation of such technologies at scale is gathered. So this is what the proposed standard, where everything is going to be tested. If it is found okay, then it is going to be passed. Otherwise, it is going to be revised again. Second will be a drop standard. After at least 2 positive, separate, and interoperable implementation, proposed standard is elevated to the drop standard. So whatever the proposed standard is available, and after proposed standard testing, it is lead to the draft standard after the 2 positive, separate, and interoperable implementation. So implementation is required over here. Bearing the difficulties, the draft standard that usually becomes an internet standard with the modifications if specific problems are encountered. As we know that if there is a proposed standard having the bugs or let's say any lacunas, it is going to be tested. If it is found okay, proceed. Otherwise, it is going to be revised. So it is going to be also measured over here. In the third one, internet standard, the draft standard reaches internet standard after demonstration of successful implementation. So after implementation, the draft standard comes to the internet standard. Generally, internet standards cover interoperability of system on the internet through defining the protocol, message formats, schemes, and the languages. The most fundamental of the internet standards are the ones defining the internet protocol. So once after the implementation of the draft standard is going to be internet standard, so the implemented version of everything is what the internet standard. The internet standard ensures that the hardware and software produced by different vendors can work together, because in the world there are too many of organizations are available who is producing the hardware and software. So in the internet standard is what the global one, where the hardware and software are going to be checked. What we can say, the heterogeneous platform is going to be checked, so that it is going to be common to all. Having a standard makes it much easier to develop software and the hardware that links different network, because software and hardware can be developed one layer at a time. Normally the standard used in data communication are called protocols. So as we know, the protocols is what the protocol is what the rules and regulation, where the 3 terms are required. Very first is the syntax. The syntax supposed to be followed. Semantic meaning supposed to be followed, and the timing. Where let's say an example of English language. So here SVO is what the syntax that must be followed. The meaning of SVO, everyone having their separate meaning, and the timing is what the timing is supposed to be followed. So after the implementation is going to be, after the implementation of the draft standard is going to be an internet standard, okay, and ultimately it is going to be becoming a protocol by any different vendors. Then we have another one, the historic. From the historical perspective, the historic RFCs are significant. They have either been superseded by the later specification or never passed the necessary levels of maturity to become the internet standard. Next will be experimental. RFC is classified as experimental, describe work pertaining to an experimental situation which does not affects internet operation. In one functional internet service should such an RFC be implemented. And the last one is what the informational class of RFC contain general, historic, and tutorial information about the internet. It is usually written by someone in an organization other than the internet, so such as vendors. So here, these all are what the RFC levels are very important, where RFC comprise of detailed study of what we can say the protocols and the devices and the standards. So here we can say what we have shown in the slide. You are requested to visit to that site where you can get the actual details about this. So this is www.rfc-editors.org standards. So I hope that the how RFC created, how RFC is going to be built, the levels, the requirements, the proposed steps are clear to you guys. I hope it is okay. Enjoy the day. Thank you.